Okay, so last week I did a mixed video of 1989 and 1991, and at the end I said I can't go into it right now because I don't have enough time, which has to do with 1991. And I touched on that video before years ago when I first started making these memory videos, when I first went into depression 5 years ago, when I found out that my mother and all my uncles had passed away. I went into the depression mainly because my mother had passed away, my adopted mother, Aunt Marie. And it hit me very hard because of circumstances that happened through the years, primarily getting ripped away from her and never being allowed to see her again. I only had contact with her over the phone and through the cards and letters that I sent to her, and then she would frequently call me when she was either in Missouri, at Karen's house predominantly. She very seldom ever called me from Rita's house. And if she was at Uncle Wayne and Aunt Sharon's house, she would call, or Uncle Bill and Aunt Maxine's house, she would call. I'm not sure if she called me. I think she did once or twice, at Uncle Tom and Aunt Rose's house, but most of the time the calls came from other places. Sometimes over the road she would call me, but yeah. So the things I was talking about last week that had to do with 1991, and I said I'll go into it, I don't have time, had to do with the reasons why I got drunk and I lied to my mother. And that was the only time I ever really actually lied to her. There was one time when I was 22 years old, and that I will not go into because it's an embarrassment to me. I don't have a problem with talking it out with personal people that I know, but open like this, no, I will not do it. I have done a video about it, and I blocked it, and nobody got to listen to it except me. I'm not sure if I will include that one in my autobiography or not. It depends on how my writing goes. Some stuff I will leave out because it is just too personal, and I don't want to cause any backlash, I'll say it like that, towards me. Even though I'm the one who got reprimanded for a couple situations of private videos that I blocked out, they did happen, but I don't want to discredit my mother's character. So I'm not sure if I will include those particular memories or not in my book. But anyway, so what happened in 1991 to cause me to get drunk was a couple different things. One, it was when I was working for Daryl, and Daryl, I have indicated, does not remember me working for him. I worked for him for approximately 4 months. Why he has zero memory of that, I have no clue. I just told him, I said, I guess I didn't leave an impression on you or something. But he was also going, at that time period, he went into personal issues, a divorce. His wife left him with his first child, and that was why we went out to drink. We went out to the bar, was because it was that night. So what happened is I went to Daryl's house. Either Tony dropped me off, I don't remember who dropped me off, or Rose and John dropped me off. It was probably Rose and John who dropped me off at Daryl's house. They lived about maybe 10-15 minutes away from where Daryl lived in Pomona, where they worked in Chino at these apartment complex. They were managers there. And so I get there, and I'm sitting behind the desk in his living room because I was his dispatcher. I manned the phone and the radio, and if there was a problem from one of his accounts, he had accounts that were the projects. The residents would call, and I would dispatch to Daryl, and him and his patrol officers would go over and take care of whatever. And if they needed, and they also worked with the Pomona Police Department or Sheriff's Department also, and so forth. So if there was a call that needed to be made, I'm the one who did it, and that's what I did. So this one day, like I said, after I was dropped off, I was sitting behind the desk, and Daryl was getting ready to go on patrol, and I was going to obviously stay at his house. And sometimes I would go on patrol with him, and that's one thing my mother forbid me to do. I was not to do it. I did do it a couple of times. She found out, and I paid for it. I was reprimanded and had a lecture, a real good lecture. She didn't want me to do something like that because she knew it was dangerous. She knew what type of job that Daryl did. And the only reason why she agreed that I worked for Daryl, because she knew I would be at his house at a desk answering phones and dispatching on the radio, because I did have prior experience in doing that when I was in security. So Daryl had told me that his wife at the time, Suzanne, I had to think of her name there for a minute. Suzanne had left and took his daughter. That's all I remember. I don't remember any other details than that, and he was pissed. He didn't feel like going to work. He wanted to go to one of his accounts, which was a bar. And that's what we did. Another thing Daryl does not remember, but I described too many things to him to prove to him, yeah, that really happened. So my mother, I had indicated in the last video that my mother would call me every single night. And she did. It was a promise she made to me after Dad's funeral when I went to go work for Daryl. And she also knew that I stayed at Rose and John's apartment when I worked for Daryl. And she would also call there. And when I wasn't in Chino or working at Daryl's, I was home in Riverside spending time with Tony, and she would first call at Daryl's at night at 7:20 every single night, pretty much. It was before 8 o'clock. If I was not working, she called Rose and John's apartment, and then find out that I was back in Riverside at my apartment, and so then she would call there. If she had to call a fourth time, hunting me down, that never went over well. And that did happen on a couple of occasions. I was in San Bernardino at the Motel 6, hanging out there with somebody that I knew that worked for Motel 6 at night. And I ended up living with them in 1992, actually, when Tony and I separated. So before we go out, I told him, I said, I need to make a phone call. And I need to call your dad. I need to call Uncle Wayne's, and I need to talk to my, I didn't say my mother, Aunt Marie. And he's like, why? Because I said, she's going to call. She calls me every single night. And so I'm going to call her. And it was right around 5:30-ish. And so I called Uncle Wayne's house, asked to speak to Aunt Marie. And so he gets her on the phone, and she's like, what's wrong? It's not 7:30 yet. And I said, I just decided to call you for a change. And let Daryl pay for it. And Daryl's standing right there in front of me. And he's like in the background saying, why don't you just tell her? Why don't you just tell her? And I'm telling him, I'm going, hang on a minute. And I'm putting my hand over the receiver, because back then you could do stuff like that. And I'm telling him to shut up. I can't let her know I'm going into a bar. She wouldn't like that. And he didn't know the relationship I had with her. He did not know at the time I was adopted. And so he didn't understand that. How old are you? You're 26 years old. You have a right to do what you want. And that is not what I was taught. I did not have a right to do what I want, when I wanted, have what I want, go where I wanted, etc. And I was taught that by her. So it's something that Daryl didn't quite understand. And so, me saying to her that I'm going to a bar with Daryl tonight, he doesn't feel like working, it would not have gone over, and she would have forbid it. And I know she would have. Hindsight that I was told that later. So I get back on the phone with her, and I'm telling her, I just wanted to call you to see how you were doing, let you know I'm here at Daryl's, everything's fine, I'm sitting behind the desk, that's pretty much it. Daryl's in uniform, he's getting ready for work, and you think Daryl would just pick up on it and just keep his freaking mouth shut. Nope. He's like, why are you lying? I ain't getting ready for work. I ain't even going to work. And I don't know if she heard, whatever. But I'm like going, shut up. And I kept muffling the phone. Well, that raised suspicion to her. I just didn't know it at the time. And so, I asked, how was Grandma doing? Because Grandma was in a care facility for Alzheimer's. I asked, how's Uncle Bud? How's Aunt Sharon? How's Uncle Wayne? Okay, tell everybody I love them. You gonna go see Grandma soon? Tell her I love her, but she probably won't remember who I am. And because she did not. She, before she passed away, she no longer remembered who my mother was, and Uncle Wayne. She didn't know who they were. I was told that she did remember one of them. I think maybe it was Uncle Tom. When him and Aunt Rose went to see her before she passed away, but she did not know Uncle Wayne or my mother, and that bothered her. So anyway, I get off the phone, and I go, I don't think I changed my clothes, but I went and, freshened up a little bit. And we went out to one of Daryl's accounts. It was his idea to go. And he had, one of his accounts was a bar. And we go in, and we're sitting up at the bar counter. And I ordered a rum and coke. Harmless. Daryl ordered a beer. In fact, I remember, as drunk as I got, I remember Daryl having 2 beers. So my memory of the bar drinking, a lot of it's sketchy. There is parts of it that I do remember. I know I had a rum and coke, and then I had another rum and coke. Well, I don't know if it was Daryl that coaxed me, which it probably was. I continued drinking different stuff. But before that, Daryl and I were talking, and he's the one who said to me that he didn't think that he was a Waltman. He was told by one of the cousins during the funeral, meaning my father-in-law's funeral, Dad's funeral, that, and this was back in, Dad died in May 10th. We had his funeral May 14th. I went to work for Daryl right away, and this took place around June. When we went to the bar. middle to late June. Uh, and um, and I told him, what do you mean? And I was sworn to secrecy. I knew about all of that when I was 22 years old. I knew a lot of secrets about the family that pertain to the cousins, the aunts and uncles, and etc. And I was told a lot of stuff, and it was confined in me by my mother when I started asking questions about stuff. And she's the one who told me that out of Rick, none of Uncle Wayne's kids were his. They were somebody else's. And it was always mentioned about Daryl, how he was such a bad kid growing up, and I heard all those stories. And Daryl was like, he went off about, Suzanne, and how they fight all the time, and what a rotten person she is, blah, blah, blah. Took his daughter, and went to another state. So we're talking about that, and then Daryl goes into the thing about the family and me. And I already had drank 2 rum and cokes. So and they were pretty strong. That was one of Daryl's accounts. The bartender obviously knew him, or the owner, or whatever, and they made their drinks good. So I would go as far as saying, with 2 rum and cokes, and they were pretty strong, I was about buzzed. A good buzz. Very relaxed, and I think that was Daryl's plan. And, anyway, I told Daryl, because he asked me if I knew anything, and I told him that I promised that I wouldn't say anything. And he goes, tell me if it's about me, blah, blah, blah. So I told him that I was told that you aren't Uncle Wayne's son. That Aunt Sharon had an affair, and she got pregnant, but Uncle Wayne raised you as his son. So he started talking about that type of thing, and then it came to me and the family. And I told him, I said, I'm not allowed to tell you. And he's like, what? It ain't no effing big deal. And I said, you swear you won't say anything to anybody? And I said, swear to me. I said, promise. And a promise to me, like my mother taught me, is very sacred. And if you make a promise that you're not going to say anything, I trust you. And if you break that trust with me, you might as well forget about knowing me for the rest of your life, because it ain't going to happen. I don't do broken promises unless it's for one damn good reason. And it better be a damn good reason. Anyway, I confided in Daryl and told him about our relationship and me with the family. And he basically at first said, you're bullshit, I don't believe you, that's not true. And I said, yes it is. And he goes, swear it. I said, I swear on Dad's grave, your Uncle Ollie's grave, I swear it. Okay, he was cool with it. He, like I said, he doesn't remember that. He doesn't, and he was, at that time period, the only person I ever said anything to. And if I was not buzzed by the alcohol, I would never have breathed a word about it. But I told him how the relationship started with me and Aunt Marie. She's the one who asked me to have a mother and daughter relationship with her. I wanted to ask her, but she asked me first. And that made me feel good. And it was weeks later, not too many weeks went by, it was only a couple, is when I asked her to adopt me. And which That's a whole entire different story. So anyway, after the rum and coke, and I'm smoking like in Chimney, because when I smoke, it is more of a social smoking than it is of the draw of a cigarette. And smoking and stuff, and have another drink. I said, no, two's my limit. I'm not having anymore. Oh, come on. What are you, chicken? I'm not chicken. I said, I just had enough, and I know when to quit. Yeah, like that happened. Anyway, I end up having a Dr. Pepper. Not the beverage Dr. Pepper. It's a drink called a Dr. Pepper. And what it is a beer. I don't remember what beer they used. It could have been Coors or Budweiser or Michelob. It might have been Michelob, because if I drank beer, which was very seldom, it was Michelob, and it had to be ice cold. And at the time period, I liked it on tap. And I very seldom ever drank beer because I don't like the taste of it. So it could have been a Michelob. And so they give you a glass about yay big. I think it's called the glass are called highballs. About this big, and the round ones. And they fill it with beer. And then they leave about that much, from the top. Well, in a shot glass, it's filled with amaretto. And you take the shot of the amaretto, and you have to do it really quick. And you drop it down into the glass, and you down it really fast. And it tastes like a Dr. Pepper. And it really did taste like a Dr. Pepper. So I already had 2 rum and cokes. Then I had a beer with amaretto in it. So 3 drinks. Yeah. Yeah, then we're talking some more. I think I asked for some water or some coffee, whatever. And talking to the people, and I'm just warming up. And talking to the people sitting around the bar, because we were over on the left-hand side, and then the bar went around like this, curved and went down. And I could actually envision that bar, what it looked like. And so we're talking and just having a good time. There's a bunch of people there. The waitress that was in there, I remember her being really nice. She probably had, I think she had brunette hair. She's a really nice woman. And I remember her coming up to me and saying, "Don't worry, sugar," or something like that. She said, we're watching you. We won't let nothing happen to you. And Daryl's like, yeah, she doesn't drink. And he goes, yeah, see how much she doesn't drink. I already had 3. And then we were talking, and I end up having this drink. It's called a blowjob. And what that is a liqueur drink. And it's in a tall, well, it's not tall. It's like that. It's a liqueur glass. It's about yay tall, has a wide mouth on it. And I told the bartender how to make it, and I had one when I was in Missouri the year prior. And it's Kahlua, amaretto, and you layer it. So you put it with whichever one's heavier. I don't remember. Kahlua at the bottom, and then you top it with amaretto. And then you take whipped cream and you put whipped cream on the top of that. And then you take a cherry and you stick it on top of that. And when you drink it, you don't pick it up and drink it and sip it or with one of those little straws. You take it by the teeth, or like that, down like that, and up like that, and drink it, and it comes down, and then you eat the cherry and you have the stem. I had one of those. Now we're at 4 drinks. That's all I remember as far as drinking alcohol. I do know that I had more than that, but those are the 4 drinks that I have always remembered. I know that I ordered others. I don't remember what, so I started mixing the alcohol around, which is a big, serious no. You don't do it. So I'm just like having fun. We were there for several hours. Um, and I guess I really tied one on. And I remember the music. They played a mix of music. They played country western music. I wanted to go out on the dance floor and dance, and I did. Daryl's standing there watching me, making sure no one bothers me. And he was a good protector. I remember I had to go to the bathroom, and the one waitress, she took me to where the bathroom was, and the place was packed. That I remember. It was kind of dark and dim, and it was packed full of people. And I went to the bathroom. They made me coffee. Daryl had found me, either him or his patrol officer. I was trying to make out with somebody. That was the story I was told, and I'm like, well, I would never do that. And obviously, I was married to Tony at the time, because I can't imagine myself coming on to somebody, even tipsy, and wanting to make out with somebody. That is not something I would do, but I was told that's what I did. And anyway, and go back over and sit down. There was a part I remember of that whole entire night, after I had several drinks of alcohol. I had blacked out, meaning I blacked out where I didn't pass out. That's not what I mean. I totally don't remember of a couple of hours that happened. I was told that I raised Cain inside the bar. I was kind of wild on the dance floor. And I kind of lost it. I don't know if I did or if I didn't. I was just told that. And so I know that I vaguely remember putting my money on the counter because Daryl had paid me. And he paid me like almost $400 because he would pay me in cash. And he told me he grabbed the money and put it in his pocket. He ended up giving it to me the very next day. And he told me that you were like, drinks for everybody, all around. And he goes, I said no. He goes, she doesn't have enough money for that. He goes, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And because when he gave me back my money, so there's that part that I don't remember. So I remember coming outside. I know it was after midnight, 12, 1 o'clock, something weird like that. And I was hungry. And his one patrol officer, his name was Tony, he was a black man, had a hamburger from In-N-Out or Carl's Jr., wherever. And I'm like, can I have a bite? I devoured it. I was hungry. And anyway, they put me in the car and took me back to Daryl's to sleep it off. I remember sleeping, but I was so sick. Very, very, very sick. But one of the reasons I decided to drink is because Ollie dying, and I was very grieved, stricken over that. I loved him very much. Him and my mother's, the love I had or have, it's a close tie. I collapsed in front of his casket the day before he was buried, and my Uncle Bill, before I hit the floor, caught me just in time. They saw him and my uncles because they were sitting up there in front. And my mother was several rows back with Uncle Bud, and the other family was there, and she let me go up to his casket against her own better judgment. And hang on, I'm going to stop this and do a part 2 to this.